You know, media pylons, I wonder whether you're as sick of them as I am. This hammering away at people day in, day out over something that you probably forgave and forgot weeks earlier. And I want to give you an example. Scott Morrison, Prime Minister. Now, I'm not that close to him, but he strikes me as a decent bloke trying his best. He did make one big mistake. That was to honour his promise to his girls after a huge year of politics and take the family on holidays to Hawaii. Unfortunately, just when the bushfires at home were getting deadly. Now, he cut that holiday short. But how often has Morrison been grilled about this? How often has he admitted he made a mistake? It's been grovelling since before Christmas.
If you had your time over again and you had the benefit of hindsight, then would have made different decisions. I'm sure Australians are fair-minded and understand that when you make a promise to your kids, you try and keep it. But as Prime Minister, you have other responsibilities, and I accept that, and I accept the criticism.
But the media just won't let up. Morrison again today, after nearly 2 months, still had to go through the whole thing again on radio. Sorry. Well, we haven't got that grab. Joining me is Rowan Dean, editor of the Spectator Australia. I subscribe, you should too, and host of the wonderful Outsiders. Had great ratings again on Sunday. Rowan, thank you so much indeed for your time.
Thanks, Andrew.
What are journalists wanting from Scott Morrison? Blood?
Yeah, well, literally, I hope not. But this is the classic move from the Canberra Press Gallery, from the left. They've got one little thing on Morrison because he made the catastrophic mistake of actually apologising and falling for the trap that they set for him during his holiday. Now, as I said at the time, I don't think he should have left his holiday. I think he should have stayed on his holiday. He's the Prime Minister. He's not God. He's not some kind of religious figure. He's not... yes, he's the leader of the nation, but in our system, the Prime Minister means just that. You are the first among equals. And if you go on holiday, then someone else steps into your shoes, and they have the full qualities and qualifications to do that job. Of course, that should have been our Michael McCormack character, our mystery invisible man, who should have done that job, and he should have stepped straight up and said, I am here, I am leading the nation, while Scott Morrison enjoys a well-earned and well-deserved holiday with his children. And Scott Morrison should have returned at the end of his holiday and said, right, thank you, Michael, for doing a brilliant job as the acting Prime Minister, and now I'm back to take over. You did a sensational job leading the country in my absence, and now I'm back fulfilling that role. That's what should have happened. But the trap which the Canberra Press Gallery set, and to be fair, they set it because they saw the opportunity, for whatever dopey reason, someone in the Prime Minister PR department or whatever did not inform the press gallery that the Prime Minister was off on his well-deserved break, and so they had that one little slip-up, they used it, they've leveraged it, they've now got him having apologised, and once you apologise to the left, Andrew, for anything, they will use that to hammer you and hammer you and hammer you because you've shown, yes, I did something wrong. And that allows them to keep replaying the story. And, Andrew, they will replay this story. They'll find new angles to this story. They'll keep it going because they have him on the ropes.
No, I'll talk about new angles. I mean, just yesterday there was the New Daily demanding that Morrison tell them how much taxpayers paid for security to guard him on this holiday. You know, the Morrisons pay for themselves, of course, and of course they need security. I don't know, Rowan, this is just getting insane. Rowan, we've had Labor, talking about these bushfires, claim again and again, like they were caused by global warming, they were made worse by global warming, and we must cut our emissions even harder, apparently to stop more fires in the future. But, Rowan, 2 hours ago on this station, Labor MP Matt Thistlethwaite exposed what a fraud that argument is. On Sky, he was asked maybe, I don't know, 6 times by Kieran Gilbert to say whether he, or by Chris Kenny, to say whether he really believed that cutting our emissions, as Labor insists, would really give us fewer fires. And every single time, Matt Thistlethwaite refused to give a straight answer. Some examples here.
Do you believe that Australian climate change policies can actually lead to reduced bushfire risk in Australia?
I believe that Labor will certainly have a stronger set of policies when it comes to climate change.
Can Australian climate policies reduce the bushfire risk in Australia?
Well, what we need to do, Chris, not only Australia but globally, is try and reduce the incidence of climate change.
Can Australia's emissions reductions policies reduce the bushfire risk in Australia?
Well, I think that, Chris, the responsible thing to do is for Australia to make sure that we accept the advice of climate scientists.
So what do we conclude from that, Rowan?
We conclude two things. One, that Chris Kenny is a very talented and intelligent journalist, and we also conclude the truth is, of course, that Labor know, those people who are honest within the Labor Party, know that there is nothing that can be done in Australia in terms of reducing emissions that can ever reduce any risk of any intensity in the bushfires and therefore any risk of further bushfires. And this is precisely the point that I was making on Outsiders, which Paul Barry, you did a brilliant thing yesterday on how Paul Barry, and on your blog, Andrew, about how Paul Barry had misrepresented deliberately what you and Chris and myself and others have been saying, which is a very, very simple, very logical argument that if we are only responsible for 1.3% or 1.5% or whatever it is of global emissions, and global emissions are responsible for bushfires, drought, and I think, as Alan Jones said, for the dog slipping his leash. If global warming is responsible for all these things, then by definition we can only ever reduce those risks or those dangers by 1.5% ourselves. That is the clincher. Well done to Chris Kenny for forcing Labor to confront the absolute ludicrousness of the position that says, OK, global warming is responsible for the bushfires. And the smart brains within Labor recognise that, and they recognise how ridiculous it would be to make that claim. Of course, the Greens will make that claim every day because they're loopy. But well done for spotting that, putting that question to them, because they can never answer it, because the answer is no. The answer is no, we cannot reduce emissions. We cannot reduce the risk of bushfire by reducing emissions.
All the pain, no gain. Now, we had another insight today into this new culture of hate, Rowan. We've mentioned it before. Democrat politicians in the United States Congress, particularly women dressed in white, actually shouting at Trump as he gave his State of the Union address and refusing to applaud even when he said employment rates for minorities, record highs. I mean, don't they like that? And then there was Speaker Nancy Pelosi ripping up her copy of Trump's speech. What are we seeing here?
Well, Andrew, one wag on Twitter said, oh, I presume Nancy Pelosi was ripping up the articles of impeachment, because, of course, that's going on at the same time. Look, there was a great bit of footage when Trump won the election, which was played a lot at the time, of this rather well, I guess unattractive individual on the ground screaming with incoherent rage and rocking backwards and forwards, yelling, and there's a kind of hideous scream. And that really represented the left's response to Trump, an incoherent rage that they can't find any logical reasons to disapprove of Trump. It is all about emotion and feeling. And this is the problem that the left increasingly have got themselves into. It's a problem that we see surfacing here in Australia as well, which is that if you base all your policies or all your political salesmanship purely on emotions rather than logic or facts or arguments or policies, then where do you go when your opponent is successful with their policies?
Correct.
And this
all you're left with is screaming or violence, and that we're seeing, unfortunately, as well, Rowan. Yeah. I just think it's the death of reason, particularly in the left, and it's
Absolutely.
very sad. Rowan Dean, thank you so much indeed for your time.
Thanks, Andrew. See you soon.